A chap I know gave a friend an elephant for his birthday. It was a magnificent bronze creature which he left at his friend's sitting room. The friend came home, discovered it, and rang his friend. "Thank you very much for the elephant," he said. His friend replied, "Don't mention it." Well, that was a joke. Some of you got it? You'll be pleased to know that only 1 in 500 get it. Well, Thomas was pretty good at mentioning it, the elephant in the room, that is. But before we get to that, let's recap. Imagine, if you will, what it must have been like for the followers of Jesus. Jesus had been killed in a very public manner. His followers are fearful for their own safety, fearful of the authorities who had engineered the death of their leader, and they're now hiding behind locked doors. Despite this, nevertheless, Mary Magdalene encounters Jesus and tells the others, who may or may not believe her. The others meet, no doubt, to discuss what Mary has told them. Then as they talk, Jesus stood amongst them and greets them with the traditional, "Peace be with you." Jesus shows them his wounds and they believe. Thomas is not present. However, the others tell Thomas, who indicates that he doesn't believe them. A week later, Thomas joins with the others, again behind locked doors. Again, Jesus stands amongst them with the words, "Peace be with you." And before Thomas can say anything, Jesus tells him to touch him. He touches and believes, and in believing earns the doubting attachment to his name. Doubting. Not so sure about that. Let's just go back a little way. Remember chapter 11:16. Jesus was planning to travel to Judea to raise Lazarus. As Judea was a dangerous region for Jesus and the disciples, they were trying to talk him out of it. But it's Thomas's clear voice that's heard. "Let us also go that we may die with him." He's no coward, and he's probably just saying out loud what the others are thinking. He doesn't say, "Don't go, because you might be killed," and not stating the obvious that if Jesus is killed, then so might the disciples be. No, he calls out the sleeping elephant, the elephant in the room. "Let us go that we may die with him." He does seem to be the realist, the practical one, the one who can show faith in his rabbi, sufficient to potentially go to his death with him. He touches and believes with the words, "My Lord, my God." He seems to have reached another level of faith, another level of trust. And yet, the others only needed to see Jesus to believe. Okay, they saw the wounds, but that wasn't enough for Thomas. He needed to touch. And in this situation, I can't think of a more appropriate human reaction, to be honest. The need to touch. We know how hugely important touch is to many creatures in this world of ours, certainly for all humans. I think we know this instinctively. We certainly know it scientifically. Think of the horrifying orphanages discovered in Albania after the fall of communism. Children who in their first year of life receive no touch from a human being. Fed, yes. Basic needs attended to, yes. But none of the loving touch of a parent or caregiver. The results of that deprivation has lived on with those children into adulthood with tragic and disastrous consequences. In social services, especially in the therapeutic environments, touching between staff and clients in a Western model of treatment is often fraught, to be honest. It's not to say that it can't happen, but if it does, then it tends to be somewhat calculated, certainly brief. Yet at the mission, many of our clients receive no touch from another human being throughout the day, or even over many days. That's not to say that no touching happens. The unexpected hug when good news is received, such as a house that you've been waiting for months, or the spontaneous hug when a client returns to visit after months or years of absence. You'll see handshakes and hongies and pats on the back or the arm and hugs during times of grief. The sad thing is that it's often not enough, and some always miss out. It's strange, but I believe true, that if you've touched someone, a handshake or a hongi, then your desire and ability, for instance, to advocate for them seems to become that much stronger, that much more compelling. I can see some of that in Thomas. He touched the wounds of Jesus and believed, despite knowing the risks associated with being identified with Jesus and his followers. Yet he still believed. In this way, we come to see Thomas in a new light. His doubts have less to do with mere cognizance of the facts, more so to do with their implications. For belief requires a response. No point in believing if you ain't going to do anything with it. And Thomas responded. His ministry took him beyond the Roman Empire, preaching and baptizing all the way to India and to possible martyrdom. We don't really know how his life ended. What we do know, however, is that once you encounter the risen Christ, you become open to the wounds of others. You become prone to speaking up, to advocating for justice, to becoming vulnerable to ridicule and even persecution. When we work amongst the homeless, visit the sick and dying, work amongst migrants and prisoners, or in war zones and refugee camps, whenever we meet poor, disenfranchised, the marginalised, then we touch their wounds. And in doing so, we meet the risen Christ with all his experience of pain and suffering. When we work in this manner, we also open ourselves to that political sphere. At the time of writing of John's Gospel, Thomas's words had become extremely subversive. My Lord and my God became extremely dangerous to be heard outside of his community. For that's the title demanded by Domitian, emperor. Roman texts of the era attach the title, my Lord, my God, word for word to the emperor. And any other claimant to the title and his followers was suspected of treason and obviously subjected to arrest. And perhaps we can see another form of subversiveness when Jesus breathes on the disciples and says, receive the Holy Spirit, accompanied with the authority to forgive sins. Subversive. For to forgive sins is perhaps the ultimate in giving peace. 3 times, remember, 3 times Jesus offers peace in this reading. I don't think Jesus was saying, hey, don't worry, be happy, everything will be all right, be at peace. I think this remarkable commissioning is about offering peace as part of a new ministry, never seen before. Furthermore, it's a call for all followers of Jesus to offer peace to their own, to the stranger, whatever the circumstances. Now, soon in our service this morning, we will be sharing peace, something that's been part of our tradition since the beginning of our faith. This sharing will take place often accompanied with the words, peace be with you, and also with you. It will also be accompanied with a hug or a kiss or a handshake. In other words, we will touch each other, not as an ordinary secular greeting, but as part of this act of ministry. We're about to begin the celebration of the Eucharist, and the placing of the peace at this point of the service is not accidental. Whilst the passing of peace is not a sacrament, it is really sacramental. And unlike the sacraments, it's something that we all followers of Jesus, are commissioned to do. Belief requires a response, and perhaps the best response we can ever make is the passing of peace, wherever it may be needed. We may have our doubts, but they should never get in the road of denying peace. In the end, it's not really Thomas's doubting or demanding that matters. It's his believing, and I think the manner of his believing. We all have doubts. We exchange one belief for another. Not everyone believes today what they believed yesterday. We all have difficulty trusting all that others tell us, all that our scholars tell us, and our teachers tell us, all that our clergy tell us, present company, of course, excluded. Even if we believe at one level, we still need to push that belief as hard as we can. If we trust the bedrock of our belief to hold up whilst we engage in some healthy doubting, then, and probably only then, can we approach that level of belief and trust that Thomas reached and state unequivocally, "My Lord, my God." We started the sermon with an animal reference, and so we close with another. A man addressed a question to the prophet. "Should I tie up my camel and trust in Allah, or should I leave her untied and trust in Allah?" And the messenger of Allah, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Tie her up and trust in Allah." Amen.